competitive. And now, here's Rob Dibble.
I try to make something positive out of every negative.
Okay, good luck on this one.
The best part of that night was watching it. Garrett Cole stepped in to the pitcher's coach role and started working with Severino. And after the first inning, Severino actually threw a little bit better. Didn't look awful. Peralta actually came in, and the bullpen looked pretty good behind him. But he's got to learn how to pitch again, and he's not going to learn it by a sequencing guy that never pitched in the big leagues. He's got to look to his teammates and guys. Either David Cone needs to come out of the booth and go down and talk to this kid. He's still got 95 to 97 mile-an-hour fastballs that he's pumping in there, but he lacks confidence to really drive them home and locate that. As far as the one hit, give Elder some credit. 7 innings, 1 hit, 3 walks. He nibbled around the plate enough to get them to hit a lot of ground balls and get a lot of ground ball outs. But, 14 first pitch strikes for Elder. Severino, 12 out of 21, which is, about a little bit more than 50%. But the bottom line with looking at this lineup as we continue to talk about it is they're starting to look more like the Mets than they are a playoff contender, meaning they look like they're rebuilding. They look like they're thinking about 2024, 2025. And watching the Mets game, Mets were horrible. They're god-awful. They do some ridiculous base running stuff, play poorly on defense. They're making Buck Showalter look bad is what they're doing. And I think that, the worst thing you can do is give up on the season. And the Mets just look like they've given up on the season. Now, as far as the Yankees, they're 6.5 out of the wild card. They're right there. You got almost 50 games left. You're right in the thick of things, yet you're looking like, when they said Severino's all we have because we don't have a lot of starting pitching because of injury. That's ridiculous. I don't care if Germán's out or Cortez is out. You got guys in the minor leagues. If you think you don't have enough in the minor leagues, you should have traded for somebody at the trade deadline. Again, I put this on Brian Cashman. He wasn't prepared. He wasn't prepared with the guys he came into spring training with. Just basically signing Rendon and Judge back as an extension, that wasn't enough. One reliever at the trade deadline was not enough. So they're doing the minimal. And to have your team captain then come out and say, we're just not showing up. We're preparing properly, but we're not executing. Well, what does that mean? That means that you got no heart. You have no pride. Your New York Yankees. Go out there with a little bit of, the P word and vinegar. But you've lacked a lot of that, and I'm not putting this on Aaron Boone anymore. I'm putting this on policing each other. Stanton's not getting in somebody's butt. Judge is not getting on people. Now, publicly, that's the first I've heard Aaron Judge say things like that. That's what a captain would do. Yep. But a captain also has to go to each guy and be like here was Eric Davis. Eric Davis, even after I had a good outing, he'd come up and he'd look me right in the eye and he'd be like, never be satisfied. Never be satisfied with a great outing. Let's go. You've got more in you. And it's funny because I just read this thing by Trevor Rosenthal. He talked to Bob Gibson as much as he could before Bob Gibson passed away. Bob Gibson told Trevor Rosenthal, he said, I gave so much effort every 5th day, I used to pee blood. God. Can you imagine a guy telling you that? And so what Trevor Rosenthal said, well, I don't think I'll ever have that kind of dedication to my craft, but I can give more effort. Yep. And that's the bottom line right there. So execution, effort, I feel are basically the same thing. I just see the Yankees showing up at these games being like, hey, I'm a New York Yankee. I'm happy to be. That's not a championship. They're not thinking about playing the Yankees. They're not playing the Mets, the Phillies. They don't care who they're playing. They're taking that series and moving on. Since the All-Star break, the Yankees are 1-7-2 in series. 1-7-2. And they've been outscored 16-3 in 2 games against the Atlanta Braves. You see a really good team versus a mediocre team. And that's basically what it is. I don't need to trash the Yankees. They know how poorly they're playing right now. But the bottom line is they weren't given enough pieces to win. And certainly when you look at right now in this division between the Rays and the Blue Jays and the Baltimore Orioles, those teams are going in the right direction. Even the Red Sox. The Red Sox are playing as a team. They got Trevor Story back. He's not doing that great, but it doesn't matter. He's playing good defense. But the rest of the team are getting better. Casas is getting better every game. Some of these other players, who's the other kid that plays second base? The kid who just hit the grand slam and stuff like that. So some of these guys, Pablo Reyes. So some of these players that are getting more playing time, as you and I discuss, the more at bats, the more confidence that you have. Then the guy spraying the ball all over the field last night. That's why the Red Sox beat the Nationals, because the Nationals have a lot of young guys. I said this the other day. Nationals are not an awful team. They don't have like a couple more superstars that they need. The Juan Sotos and Bryce Harpers and guys that should still be Nationals are not. But at the same time, these young guys coming up, it just shows you that, listen, they've evaluated and drafted correctly. And they're a couple years away from contending for the division lead. But the New York Yankees right now, it's just not in them, to go out there and think we have enough in the cupboards to beat teams like the Atlanta Braves.
Really, Cole is the only one that can have a voice, because when you're asking Judge or Stanton, some of these guys to say, hey, let's go, let's pick it up, hopefully they're looking in the mirror when they're saying that stuff.
Well,
too.
Judge missed 50 games, and it's hard because you become an invisible guy even though you are a superstar, right, but you're not in the lineup.
Right, but still, he is over. I know he's taking some walks, and I know he doesn't get the pitches that the other guys get, but it's just hard for this guy who is struggling just as much as anyone else on that lineup. The other thing is really hard, and especially the conversation you're having, they don't have the pieces that they need. Well, that's kind of set up from years ago when you have all these horrible contracts that nobody wants a part of. The pitching is even beyond. Like, you can argue that they're doing enough on defense and on the mound to win games. They're getting zero help at the plate. The situations continue to change because they're always playing from behind. Yep. Even the series that they did win, when you said that 1-7-2 record since the All-Star break in series, that's against Kansas City Royals, and that was a
should-win series.
And it weren't blowouts. Those were, I think, a 1, a 3, and a 3-run win on those series. So this team is beyond struggling right now. Wheels are falling off. They're going to be lucky to be around 500. 60-60 after 120 right now is not in the Yankees' vocabulary, especially with the dollars that they are spending. Right. But when you're looking at teams like Atlanta or even Miami that they just lost to in the series before that, like, these teams aren't necessarily talent for talent on the lineup. Yes, I would argue Acuna Jr. is the best player in this series by far. I would argue that there's some players in certain positions that I would rather have on my team than the New York Yankees. But still, Elder, I know he's 9-4, but he is not a Cy Young contender. Like, he's
a good fourth or fifth guy in anybody's rotation.
Fourth or fifth guy. That's not going to be the starter in a 3-5 game series. Like, they're losing to average. They're losing to average.
Right.
So,
but his average is way above average of looking at Severino.
I understand that, but still, he is not a world beater pitcher that is going to consistently go out there and throw one-hit games. Like, they should be embarrassed as players in the effort that they're putting out there. You can't blame anyone else but yourself right now when you're looking at the numbers, you're looking at the statistics. You can't look at the dugout for dad to come bail you out and yell at an umpire to make you feel good anymore. It's like Parcells used to say, you are what your record says you are. And right now you're average at best, 500.
Even if we go back to June with Severino, these are outs. 49 fly ball outs, 36 ground ball outs. It should be the other way, especially with his sinker and his fastball. In July, 51 fly balls, 36 ground balls. Now, if you want to break that down, June he gave up 7 home runs in 5 starts. July he gave up 7 home runs in 5 starts. In 3 starts in August, he's given up 5 home runs. He's got a 10.8 ERA in this month. So, I mean, listen, the guy is letting them hit underneath the ball. A lot of that is breaking balls and changeups that are up in the zone. And what happens is when you're lacking confidence, you overthrow, you overcompensate, and that leaves breaking balls up in the zone. When you're in a groove, Man, you're on top of those breaking balls. You're throwing those changeups, and they're landing right behind the plate. Guys are leaning forward, and they're off balance. You've got guys off balance. That's what you hear a lot. Oh, he had him off balance today. Well, what does off balance mean? It means you're pressing the ball inside. You're putting them back on their heels. Then you're throwing breaking balls and changeups in or out, and the guys are off balance enough to where even when they do make contact, it's poor contact. And that's what Elder did to the Yankees.
Yeah.
He doesn't have Severino's stuff.
They only struck out 4.
I know.
Yeah.
So when you see an Elder go out there knowing I've got great defense behind me, great offense in front of me, I've got an excellent catcher that's calling games in Murphy or Darno, whoever's back there, doesn't matter. They're doing a nice job. Not saying that Higashioka or anybody else isn't doing a good job for the Yankees, but I can only put down something. And you have to have the confidence to throw it and hit the locations. He's missing locations badly, meaning either it's up in the zone, fastballs that are supposed to be outside or riding back over the middle of the plate, and guys are squaring them up, and as they would say, barreling them up. And even David Cohn, he was the one who pointed out, he's like, Garrett Cole is not just giving him a pep talk, he's telling him that he's more talented than in his own head he believes right now. That's the problem with the Severino. That's a problem with a lot of pitchers in the major leagues right now. When you lack confidence, you're not going to carry good stuff out onto the field. So when Elder takes the mound, he's confident because he's like, if I make a mistake, somebody's going to go get it. And that's what I did. When I didn't have my best stuff, I looked behind me and I'm like, man, I got Paul O'Neill, I got Eric Davis, I got Barry Larkin, I got Mariano Duncan over here, I got Sabo's, and he could have been an NHL goalie at third. I got Hal Morris, who scoops up everything at first. I was in a no-lose situation even when I didn't have good stuff. Does that make sense?
And I'm not confident what's behind the pitchers of the Yankees.
Absolutely
I think they
not.
have some web gems
Kiner
here and
Falefa
there.
in center field.
Volpe
Kiner
had
Falefa
another
in left field,
good
Stanton in
play.
right some days. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's the best you could throw out there?
So trying to save them from going below 500 is a guy who's never seen one batter from the Atlanta Braves lineup tonight. It's Randy Vasquez, who is 2-1 on the year with the small ERA, but he hasn't had many pitches that are thrown in a Yankee uniform. He's going up against Charlie Morton.
Iodized salt. Here's the thing, though, I also wanted to point out is that the last time they were 60-60 was 1995. They would fall to 60-61 before finishing the season 19-4. That was the strike-shortened season.
Okay.
They ended up winning 79. They were 79-65. So things can turn around for this team. That I wanted to bring a positive out of this negative. So the last time they were 500, Joe Torre was probably like, hey, guys, listen, we've got a chance to turn things around here. Let's go. So going 19-4 in your final 23 games, I think is very impressive. That's something that they should look back on and say, hey, if that team could do it, then come back in 96 and win 4 out of 6 years, win 4 championships, we certainly can turn this around. Now, do they have that talent? Absolutely not. But that's not the point. The point is you're there to win games. You're there to go out there and play with a sense of pride. And when you put on those pinstripes, man, you can't have your captain going, hey, you know what? We're not executing right now. We didn't come to play. And if you can't come to play the Atlanta Braves, what are you going to wait to play some of these other, terrible teams that you're going to play? So you've got to bring your A game to face the A game of the Atlanta Braves.
7:20 first pitch tonight. Will knock us off the air at 6:40 with the pregame right here. Red Sox are back on at 7:05 tonight. They're taking on the Nationals on the field as we speak with the lead. It is a 6-3 ball game as the 6th inning just ended. The Mets on top of the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Don Mamori is going to join us next, and he'll give us his take. The New York Mets last night, like we said, they were defeated 7-4 by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pirates aren't awful. They started the season on fire. And
watching all these minor league guys you say to watch out for, they're trying to make a name for themselves. There's a lot of people that are doing that in the league right now.
Dude, right now it's 6-3 Mets in a day game. They look good at the end of the 6th inning. But the problem is you've got to catch fire eventually. You've got to start winning 8 out of 10. You got to start sweeping some teams now. You're in kind of a dire sense of urgency if you're the Yankees or the New York Mets. So both New York teams kind of in the same poorly as they have played since the All-Star break. Like I said, 1-7-2 in series that they have played. They're 6.5 out of the wild card, baby. That you got to keep hammering. If you're Aaron Boone and you're not hammering that home every day, if UConn
not going to be in their plans in the future to add to the conference, and that I don't know. I think that's kind of bad news around here.
I do too.
I want to get on one of these big boats that the rest of the schools are on. That way we have more leeway to do fun things. I mean, a lot of these schools are going to get millions and millions of dollars to do a lot of cool stuff. And it's not just with their football programs. It's with all the student athletes. It's all the fanfare that's around college sports. And, hey, CC, come on. But I don't know if that's going to be the answer either, Dibs, with all the turmoil in conferences and college football, and we'll see what happens. But that news came out today that Gonzaga and UConn have ended talks about adding teams to the Big 12.
Yeah, the commissioner was on a podcast, Brett Yormark, yeah, and he said the dream scenario of Colorado, Arizona State, and Utah unfolded for us. And so basically that's why UConn and Gonzaga are out.
Yeah.
You know?
It makes sense. I understand that.
It does, but you can't quit. You still got to try to get in somewhere, and because, as we talked off the air, getting 66, let's say 70 million a year, 80, 85, 90 million a year to help all of your sports programs, help your universities before you even take a snap in a football game. I mean, that's what we're talking about. It is about money. Deion Sanders basically went out there and said what everybody says behind closed doors, that who's got the biggest bag. And, that big bag that you carry around your campus is going to help you. And if you're not carrying that bag around, you're going to be in big trouble, man. You're going to be scrambling to try to make ends meet and get athletes and recruit athletes to come to your university.
Listen, man, as much as you want to show off your facilities, as much as you want to show off the academic side of things, which UConn has totally, ABCs of college sports, always be recruiting. And a recruit right now, if you want to compete with, man, I can offer you $1 million in NIL versus I can offer you $100,000 in NIL. That's the first lesson of college for these young student athletes, and they're going to take the money every single time. And that's just the reality of it, man. Always be recruiting. In this world, you're going up against some monsters now. If other schools that are in our neighborhood, let's just take Penn State. It's not that far away. A lot of our student athletes in high school might venture over there. They're going to have $100 million in the next couple of years. Every single year, $100 million to spend at will. Do whatever they want, whether that's making the locker room cooler, whether that's making the jerseys cooler, no matter what. It's going to be based around getting more talent to be better, and those recruiting fights are going to get significantly harder for schools that aren't in these power conferences versus the ones that are. Significant.
Yormark did say that he believes basketball is an undervalued in the expansion conversation, and he thinks that they're the deepest conference right now in American sports.
I mean, last year they had a really great, just thinking of basketball, they had a really great conference. They put a bunch of teams in March Madness, and they're going to do that again this year. Adding the Arizona States, that's only going to help that argument as well. I totally agree with that statement. But when it comes to these television rights deals and this conference money deals, majority of it revolves around the football team.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We've got Dom Amore from the Hartford Courant. We'll talk about this latest situation with UConn and the Big 12, and also what's going on in Major League Baseball, especially with New York, the Mets, and the Yankees. Dom Amore next on the Rob Dibble Show at Ben Darnell on your afternoon drive. We got John Ashmead on the video and Kurt Kaplan on the ones and twos. Thanks for joining us.